Alan, and good morning, everybody. Zinc's got quite a long history, and I'm going to give a brief overview from Paris, the Boulevards of Paris, to the shipyards on the Tyne. Now, a lot of Parisienne roofs have zinc, and a lot of those roofs are over residential buildings and have been for almost 200 years. Some of the buildings have gone from being servants' quarters to offices to lofts, but the zinc is still there. So moving on to the next slide, we're actually the zinc roofs of Paris and the people, the skilled installers that fit them, are being submitted for UNESCO World Heritage status next month. So hopefully the roofs of Paris will actually be part of UNESCO World Heritage. Moving on though, a little bit further forward to the 21st century. This is actually a zinc-clad building, a house in Northern Ireland, which was the RIBA House of the Year in 2019 by McConaughey and McGrath architects. And here, pre-patinated quartz zinc has been used to clad not only the walls, but also the roofs and all the rainwater systems as well. And on the next slide, we're going to see something not entirely dissimilar. Again, standing seam, roofing and cladding, but this time in pigmento red. So it's the same zinc, but with a mineral pigment that gives this delicate color. And here, this is in Holland, where Mark architects have created an extension to this old early 20th century building with a thatch roof. And Christopher in the last presentation talked about materiality, and zinc works well by itself, but it's more commonly mixed with other materials. And here you can see the glazing, the brick, and indeed the thatch. And coming back to the UK on the next slide, we'll see a project actually in Berkshire. This is not pigmento red, but pigmento brown this time, with a slight brown pigment. Again, standing seam, roofing and cladding. And on the slide on the right, you can see how flexible zinc is. All the trim, the gutters, the fascias are all made from the same material. So you don't need to use a different material for the detailing. The whole roof, the whole wall, and all the detailing can be made from the same material. Next slide. What is important is the build-up. Traditionally, as you can see on the top left-hand corner, zinc roofing is fitted onto timber boarding, quite commonly plywood, and vented. And this works extremely well and is still done. But what's been used more and more for various reasons are warm, non-vented roofs. There's an air tightness, which we've heard about earlier this morning, and far fewer thermal bridges. And it's also possible to create a roof which uses only A1 or A2 non-combustible or limited combustibility materials, which is obviously more and more critical. By combining zinc, which is either A1 or A2, depending on the finish, with a non-combustible insulation and a steel deck, you can have a build-up which is not only a non-vented warm roof, but also completely non-combustible, or A1 or A2. Next slide, please. We've seen zinc is used in standing seam, but this is a Matthew Lloyd project in Clerkenwell, where zinc's been used to create shingles. Shingles are generally used on the walls, but here you can use them on a steep roof. And again, all the trim around the windows is zinc. And this is an Edwardian housing area of London, and the zinc and the ceramic brick really combines nicely in this social housing, which was built a couple of years ago. The next slide. Here, this is again public housing, social housing, but this time back in Paris. Different type of architecture, different type of zinc as well. This is engraved Azingar, which has a slight texture to it. It's got a matteness to it, but also a brightness to it, as you can see on this slide. And here, the standing seam's been used, but also flat lock panels and even sine wave corrugated zinc. And on the next slide, we'll see that, again, wall build-ups are very, very important. The vast majority of zinc is put on a ventilated wall, and the timber, as you can see on the right, can be replaced with a steel deck, again, meaning that you have a non-combustible or limited combustible wall. You'll include intumescent horizontal fire barriers. On the left, you've got a rain screen zinc system, again, on cladding rails, so no combustible materials. Moving forwards, this is a residential block, a very different type of architecture in Spain, again using the pigmento pre-weathered green zinc this time, and the flat lock. So it's the same basic principle as on the project in Clerkenwell by Matthew Lloyd Architects, but here the shingles or the flat lock panels are rectangular, but the principle is basically the same. Next slide. And this, back in London, Scott Brown Rig, Project Vista, which is between the Battersea Power Station site and Battersea Park. Here, pigmento red, so the zinc with the red pigment has been used on this block. And these are interlocking rain screen panels. Next slide. Not dissimilar, but this is the other side of the Atlantic in New York by Shop Architects, where natural zinc has been used. Natural zinc can be used. It doesn't have to be pre-patinated, but natural zinc will change over time. It will lose its shine and create a patina, which will take time to become completely even. But these panels are actually perforated to create further texture. And on the left, you can see a plinth in copper. Zinc above copper is fine. Copper above zinc wouldn't work. Zinc is compatible with lots of materials and metals, but not everything. So if you are going to be using zinc with other materials, one that could drain onto another, just speak to us to make sure that it will work. Moving on, this is using some brick, which is maybe not dissimilar to the project in Hanwell. This is in southwest London, and here standing seam roofing panels with a light brick and glazing units. As we've seen, zinc is sometimes used for the complete roof and facade, but more commonly it's combining with other materials. And then on to the next slide. Zinc, as you saw in Paris, is something that lasts a long time. The BRE do have a lifespan of 100 years. We do actually have evidence of projects which are over 100 years old. I suppose that's the main reason why zinc is sustainable, is it lasts so long. But once it is taken off a roof, it's 100% recyclable. And indeed, about 99% of zinc is actually recycled. Furthermore, very, very little maintenance is needed. You don't really need to do anything to a zinc roof or a zinc wall. You might need to clean a zinc gutter out, but that's about it. And then on to the next slide. So we've gone from Paris, and now we're on Tyne side. This is North Shields, project by Simpson Hoff Architects, where you can see that they've taken inspiration from the Brewery Bond warehouse on the left side of the left photo, not only the geometry but also the color. And here again, pigmento red standing seam roofing has been used to clad the building with some interesting glazing units as well. And then on the next slide, I think this is just a sort of a summary. Obviously, that's a very, very quick run through what we can do. If you do need more information, samples, a list of contractors and so on, we'd be happy to do that. I'm just going to finish with a very, very short film that was recently made, which is part of Open House, about a project in Greenwich. So if we can run that.
Welcome to Bell Phillips Housing in Greenwich. The Royal Borough of Greenwich, with an ageing population, has an acute need for more homes for the over 60s, and at the same time, like much of London, have many families living in overcrowded accommodation. So they identified a number of underutilised garage sites, such as this one at Walnut Tree Road. So the plan was to bring these sites back to life, repair the public realm, and provide quality, accessible homes for older people to retire into. And at the same time, this would free up larger homes for families, providing a chain of benefit.
We've designed these houses on 6 different sites throughout the borough. And in order to achieve a really good economy of scale, we've created a single house topology that we've used across all of those sites. And the design of the houses is based on the HAPPY principles, which are a set of design guidance which aims to improve the quality of homes for elderly people. For example, good flexibility, good daylight, good ventilation. And we've achieved that here through an open plan kitchen, dining, living space and 2 bedrooms. The main bedroom is at the rear and at the front. The second bedroom is useful for a number of functions. For example, a workroom or a home office, or a space for visitors to stay, or even a place for a live-in carer to stay should that become necessary later in life. In order to make best use of the available site, we've built these houses quite close to the pavement edge, but with that comes the risk of losing privacy in your ground floor living space. So to combat that, we've created a double height living space with a big clear story up above. All of the daylight comes in from the upper level, allowing the window at ground floor to be quite modest and just give you a visual connection with the outside world without losing privacy. In terms of materials, we've used brick on the lower level and we've used zinc on the upper level dormers. And the scale of those dormers also relates, as you can see, to the 2- and 3-storey houses nearby to create a bungalow which nonetheless has a scale which is appropriate to the context. And the zinc from Vmzinc is also great in as much as it can be used on the vertical plane and a shallow and a steep pitch, so it works very well with the quite complex geometry of these butterfly roofs.
We've worked really hard to design for the needs of older people, and it's been really great to speak to some of the residents and hear their thoughts. Many really enjoy the generosity of space and the quality of light from the clear story, and one resident even said how they'd never quite lived in anything like it before.
It's interesting that the zinc originated in Paris in the 19th century, but here it is being used again in the 21st century in Greenwich in a slightly different format.